Okay, I have never seen a One Piece arc like Egghead Island, like starting from, of course, the beginning of the arc with Monkey D. Dragon and Vegapunk discussing things in the flashback to Ohara, to, of course, we saw Law versus Blackbeard, Kid versus Shanks, we saw Garp versus Aokiji, and also we saw Kizaru versus Luffy, and then we see a Gorsei with his powers, and now we're getting the icing on the cake with the God Valley flashback, and there's still the Egghead incident that's about to happen after this flashback, but I never expected to see the God Valley flashback. So today for this special video, I got my boy King Recon here. We're about to do a fire collab. You got some words, Recon, if you want to say?
Dude, we're here, man. This is the flashback, I think, ever since chapter 957 dropped, Ultimate, the first time we heard of God Valley. We've all been anticipating this, looking forward to it. After Kaido's flashback, we were all wondering, when is Oda gonna start spilling the sauce? And it looks like the sauce is about to be spilled. But not only is it the God Valley flashback, it's also the Kuma flashback. And so many factors going to be playing into it, and there's no better person to be discussing this than you, my brother. So thank you for having me.
No problem, no problem. So Oda is cooking the sauce, and we gotta cook some lasagna today in this video. We gotta cook some lasagna, and I gotta start off by saying this because I feel like, I don't know about you, Recon, but I feel like those Marines in that 957 chapter when Sengoku's telling them about God Valley, and they're just so shocked, like, wait, so Roger was teaming up with Garp and the Celestial Dragons, and it's like Rocks and Whitebeard and Kaido and Big Mom, and like, what is going on? I feel like those Marines right now, because after the last chapter, seeing Saturn on God Valley, seeing Figureland Garling on God Valley, and seeing how they treat the slaves and how Kuma is being treated, a character we all love. We all love Kuma, and seeing Ivankov as a slave as well. These are founding members of the Revolutionaries, so characters we love. Ivankov was so clutch and held down in Marineford. My question to you is this: knowing that Roger teamed up with Garp, two characters we love, to go against Rocks, who was going against Saint Figureland Garling and Saturn and the Celestial Dragons. What are your thoughts on that?
Man, dude, it's something that I've been thinking about a lot ever since, just like you said, we've been those Marines for the past 100+ chapters, wondering just how and why all of that happened. I'm excited to see how much of what was said in that chapter was misinformation and how much of it is true. But based on where we are right now, I think the most exciting part is, especially after the most recent chapter, and now we're getting the God's Knights hype with Figureland Garling, and especially now knowing that Saturn confirmed after this chapter, the man has not aged a single day since however long ago, right? So there's going to be multiple different factors at hand here in regards to this entire situation, and of course, like we talked about before in a previous conversation with Rocks, and how for sure what was said in the original chapter when they introduced God Valley, and they were talking about Rocks as like this heinous villain. It reminded me of Roger at the beginning of the series, of how they would talk about him the same way. And so whenever we see Rocks within this flashback, he's probably going to be classic pirate, but I think a genuinely good dude. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that's portrayed within the flashback and how that dynamic plays out. How does Roger and Rocks dynamic play out? Why is it that Garp, of all people, the individual who refused to become an admiral because of the Celestial Dragons, do we find out why it is that he refused to become an admiral in this flashback, where he sees what the Celestial Dragons have control over these admirals or these individuals directly under them, and due to whatever is about to take place here, he completely, not necessarily changed after that, but his mindset was like, yeah, I'm never going to serve these dudes. But because of that, it's like, then why protect them? There has to be a catch. And I'm so curious to see what that catch is, especially like you talked about earlier, with the fact that Rocks it appears that his main goal here is going to be directly aligned and or going against what Garling and the Celestial Dragons are attempting to do here and what they're trying to protect, which of course is like the taboos of the world, the secrets of the world, and maybe even interrupting their current manhunt that they want to do here on God Valley as well. So I'm just really, really excited to see where all of that leads, but mainly, especially after this chapter, Mac, where this chapter once again shows us how just malicious and horrible the Celestial Dragons are. At least some of them are, if not most of them, are in the way that they're portrayed within the series. And I'm excited to see, of course, Oda always shows the flip side of that. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing how he handles the fact that Roger and Garp are going to be protecting these individuals. Like, what is going to lead towards that? And not only that, how are Ivankov and Kuma going to be involved in all of this as well? Will this be the origin of the Revolutionary Army story? Will we see Dragon in the coming chapters? It's really, really exciting stuff, man.
That's a good segue, because I was just about to ask you this question, because we all know that Garp became the hero of the Marines in this God Valley flashback, right? But now we're seeing the founding members, Ivankov and Kuma, of the Revolutionary Army. And that was confirmed in this arc. Of course, Vegapunk confirmed that they were founding members. So now Monkey D. Dragon, who would have been 17 years old, the same age as Luffy when he first started his pirate journey, do you think he is going to have a conflict with Garp in this arc? Is he going to be a Marine? Like, what are your thoughts on Monkey D. Dragon and how he plays a role in, because we know he became a freedom fighter and then a revolutionary after Ohara. So do you think he was a Marine, or do you think he was just a regular guy? Like, that's my thoughts, right? That's my question to you.
That's a great question. I think either way it's interesting. The Marine thing adds like a whole new layer. Like he was, because he was already a part of the system, he would understand, you know, how to take it apart from the inside, but not necessarily that, not just that, but as a person who maybe served under the Marines, he understands just how they work as well. And like we talked about, like how I was just talking about with Garp, maybe the God Valley incident, where Garp was unable to pull the trigger at the time and leave the Marines because of his own sense of justice. Maybe his son, who was a part of the Marines at this time, saw what happened on God Valley and refused to serve under that system that would allow something like that to take place. And that started his mindset, while of course forming a connection with Ivankov, with Guinea, with Kuma. That was like, of course, the next step in what would eventually become the Revolutionary Army. But it feels like what we're gonna get here in the God Valley incident may be where Dragon officially takes that first step of like, no, this is not happening. Not on my watch. And I think that dynamic, that dichotomy between Garp making a decision but not leaving the Marines, of course, sticking to his own sense of justice, and Dragon being like, no, not me. That's not going to be me. So if he is a Marine, it would add a new layer to that. But if he's just a regular dude, it would still hit. The important thing is that Dragon comes out of the situation feeling a certain type of way towards the Celestial Dragons, which is, of course, what's going to lead into the major conflict here in the final saga. But I'm excited to hear your thoughts, Matt, because obviously Dragon is someone you and I have been really excited to know more about, and it feels like this arc is the most that we've seen Dragon in panel time, in flashback time. Do you think this is our opportunity to see more for not only just Dragon, but a potential sighting of Luffy's mother, or stuff of that nature? Do you think this is the time for something like that?
How Ichiro Oda does his arcs, he likes to do it very poetic. So I remember the beginning of Egghead Island, Vegapunk calls Dragon to say that I'm going to die. Like, he predicts his own death. That's how smart he is. He's a genius, so he can see his own death. And now, Egghead incident, I'm thinking this would be the perfect time to finally see Monkey D. Dragon's abilities, Monkey D. Dragon do something at the end of Egghead Island, because Luffy has his hands full with an Admiral and a Gorosei right now in front of him. Like, so I wouldn't mind seeing Dragon, but I was going to say this too as well. In the God Valley flashback, it would be cool for me to see Garp and Dragon have some sort of conflict, because we're so used to like a young Ace or young Luffy go their own way, but it would be cool to see a dragon who followed the Garp's footsteps and then stray away like as he was older. That would be a different concept. That would be a very cool concept, but I think God Valley would definitely illustrate it well, because we know Garp doesn't like to talk about that, of course, because he had to team up with Roger and protect the Celestial Dragons and whatnot. But I think that would be cool. And the thing is, too, I was gonna ask you this question too, because in this chapter, surprisingly, we got a lot of Joy Boy related content when it comes to the Warrior of Liberation, and probably one of the saddest flashbacks I've ever seen in One Piece, yo. Like, just how savage it was, like, just right instantly, just for now I will say this, not to be a little dark, but when the Celestial Dragon did come in and shoot Kuma's father, I did find it a little bit amusing, because like, it was just so random. Like, Oda doesn't usually do that, right? Like, he just shoots someone just for being loud, just for yelling. But it's still, for Kuma, that was the saddest shit I ever, like, I actually felt bad for Kuma, because his mother passed away, his father passed away now, and and then he tells Bonnie about the Warrior Liberation. It's like building up for Luffy to do something amazing. But what are your thoughts on Kuma and him being this? Nobody would have thought Kuma would have been the main factor into this God Valley flashback and this special race, the Buccaneer race. I want to hear your thoughts on Kuma right now.
Dude, you know what makes it even sadder? The reason I think why the flashback hit as hard as it did is, while going through the first few pages, and you keep seeing the dad in particular have so much optimism and positivity for the fact that if Kuma just keeps living, he'll find that happiness. And to know what we know of Kuma now, where the man is still attempting to be freed from that captivity that he just recently got out of, after, of course, being freed by Sabo, but making his way back up there. It's like, he's such a tragic character that that of course lost his mind after a certain point, and is currently in that like limbo stage where you know that Kuma's still in there. The cloud you need to get past in order to get to the real Kuma is very, very thick. So it's like, I've always loved Kuma, and I always knew his flashback would be sad, but I didn't expect it to be like this, bro. This was like me experiencing Lost flashback all over again, where I grew attached to the entire family, and it got me so connected to Kuma's mission, his character. Like, it's genius, Mac. The placement, right? Because it's very Drum Island. In Drum Island, right before Luffy punched Wapol, like right as his fist was about to connect, we cut over to Chopper's flashback, saw the entire thing. So when we finished the flashback and Luffy hit Wapol, we understood everything that was going into that punch, and it made it so satisfying because we understood everything going into it. What I'm excited for now is when we exit this flashback, having all this context for Kuma, and we see the aftermath of what happens with Kuma, or what happens with Dragon, or what happens with Luffy especially, it's going to hit that much harder for us as the readers, and Bonnie as well. And so, above all else, I really want Kuma to have a happy ending in this story, even though he's a very tragic character, so it's going to come with some sort of level of sadness. But especially after the Warrior of Liberation stuff, bro, it just got me thinking, like, Oda explicitly showed us in this chapter that Luffy's out and down for the count right now. So when he's talking about the Warrior of Liberation coming in to save Kuma, is he talking about a situation that's going to happen very, very soon? Or are we talking end game, like the dawn will rise again type of thing? Because we know the dawn rising again after the borders didn't open in Wano. That's end game. That's end of series One Piece stuff. So is the Warrior of Liberation coming in to finally relieve Kuma of that sadness and pain? Is that also end game for this series? So this chapter just started creating all those questions for me. But I just wanted to say one more thing on top of that. When Nika was first introduced in chapter 1017 with the Who's Who Jinbei stuff, The first thing, well, I think it was 1018. I think 1017 was the devil fruit. Regardless, in 1018, we heard about the Nika stuff, and the first thing I thought of was dragon, because I was like, okay, an individual who's going out and freeing slaves, and it felt like once Dragon heard about Nika, this must have led him to start the Revolutionary Army. Of course, I don't think that was the case, but or now with context, but I think it's really interesting that Nika shares qualities of Dragon's mission in the Revolutionary Army, and of course Luffy, and just the embodiment of that as we see in Gear 5. So I wonder if what his dad was talking about was the literal word of liberation in Luffy, or someone who would carry those ideals in someone like a dragon. Because if that's the case, then the person who's going to save Bonnie and Kuma at the end of this arc is going to be Dragon. Like, I'm curious. I can't wait to see where Oda takes that, because he obviously, of course, is going to take the Luffy route